In this world of technology, things are ever changing, rearranging. You need someone to help you out. I know someone who can. Come and take a journey with me as we go through the land of technology. You'll never be alone. You'll be with Paul Amadeus Lane in the tech.
Welcome back to the Tech Zone. Paul Amadeus Lane, ABC News Radio, KNET. So glad you decided to stay with us after the break. I tell you, we're going to finish up a conversation here shortly that we had with the godfather of grounding and earthing, Clint Ober, just about what our bodies go through, how the earth have these different kind of properties that can help us out. But before we do that, what I wanted to do was recap that big announcement we had in our first segment, just in case you missed it. We now have apps for the show specifically, or some of my relatives says specifically. Pacific is an ocean. But check it out. If you go to your app store, Apple App Store, if you search for Tech Zone Paul Amadeus Lane, you can download it for all your iOS devices. Make sure you connect. You'll be able to talk about the episodes. You'll be able to share the episodes. And not to be forgotten, my dear friends, with the Android device, Google Play Store, Tech Zone Paul Amadeus Lane. Download the app. Enjoy your support. Thank you guys so much. And also an amazing article that was done by Betsy Bailey at Will Life. She chronicled, did I say that right, guys? Sean, did I say that right? Chronicled? Yeah. Chronicled my life of living with a disability, as well as being in the broadcast industry, and just my journey. And I wanted to open up and share with you all. All right, well, let's talk about earthing and grounding. Last week's show, we touched the surface with the father of grounding and earthing, Clint Ober, just about what our bodies go through and how the earth uses its own natural technology to help us to improve our health. We're going to pick up the conversation after Clint talked about how different animals, such as a jackrabbit running away from a predator, how certain things happen in the body and how we as humans have that going on in our body, but are not able to combat that and just the damage that it does to our bodies. Now, if you want to catch up with that first interview, go to the YouTube page, paulamadaeuslane.com, and it will be in segment 3, or part 3 of show number 70 on the Tech Zone. Also, if you're watching right now on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Share this episode. This will definitely change your life. Without any further delay, we'll pick up our conversation with the great and amazing Clint Ober.
Wow. And so that's your normal fight or flight response, but it was a spike in cortisol that gave that rabbit the energy to run and, outrun the coyote. So I relate that to today. We all have a natural fight or flight system. We're sensitive to the wind, sound. Somebody drops a fork on the floor. Our sympathetic nervous system responds, and cortisol becomes a little bit elevated. And it could be the phone rings, or you late for work, or all of these things create stress in the body. Whenever you have stress, then you have these spikes of cortisol. And the significance of this is on the other side, you have, the sympathetic drives the cortisol. That's one side of your nervous system. The parasympathetic is on the other side. It tries to modulate that response and slow you down enough so you can make an intelligent decision. And then usually it's just like the rabbit, you go through your process, whatever. But today we have so much stimulation. We call it chronically elevated sympathetic state. There's something going on in our lives at all times, all the noise, even watching TV. we're sensitized into the emotional aspects of the storyline or the entertainment or the whatever it is. But so our parasympathetic nervous system on the other side is always releasing hormones to balance and to calm down our fight or flight response. And the problem is when you have a chronically elevated sympathetic state, fight or flight state, even though it's a little, the parasympathetic can only respond so long, and then it runs out of energy. It runs out of hormones. And so this is called adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue, leads to all kinds of health problems. But what happens then, the sympathetic continues to push. I hope this makes sense. Continues to push, and the parasympathetic is no longer able to modulate that response. So the more cortisol that you have in your body from this fight or flight state, you start creating inflammation in the body. Inflammation in the body creates pain, and then the pain creates stress. The stress creates more fight or flight, and then releases more cortisol. So we end up with this vicious cycle. So how grounding plays into this, as soon as we ground a person, then we reduce the inflammation in the body that's created by the cortisol, and that's another little story we can get into. I don't know whether to get into that now or later. Am I on course, or am I making sense so far?
Oh yeah, you're definitely making course. A lot of our viewers and listeners out there who study this in school, they're like intrigued, like, wow, this is pretty awesome right here. So yeah, please continue, my friend.
Yeah. So basically, I need to back up for just 1 second and just say, what inflammation is, or what we learned about inflammation. When we first started grounding people, we couldn't understand how grounding the body alone could reduce inflammation. And back in 98, 99, when I first started here, nobody used the word inflammation. It was just not used to describe a health disorder. Inflammation would be you sprained an ankle and it swelled up. That it was inflamed. It was, but speaking of, this low-grade chronic inflammation that underlies all of these modern health disorders, nobody really knew that until about 2004. And then when the guys back at Boston, Mass, Ritger and all of them, they came out with this article. It was published in Time magazine, and it showed a picture of the body and then showed flames coming up and the word inflammation. It said, you don't have cancer, you don't have, all of these modern health disorders, autism, lupus, diabetes. What you have is chronic inflammation, and that inflammation will manifest differently in different people based on your living environment, your lifestyle, what you eat and what you believe, all of these things. So at that time, I had little knowledge of this, but I met this gentleman by the name of Sinatra. He's a doctor, he's a cardiologist. And I showed him what I was doing, and then he indicated that I should be looking at inflammation. And the more I looked at it, we learned that what happens is when you have a pathogen or a damaged cell in the body, that the immune system will send a white blood cell to the site of injury or the pathogen, and that neutrophil will encapsulate that pathogen or damaged cell, and then it releases reactive oxygen species. And as soon as I heard the word reactive, then I knew that the immune system is electrical, because these reactive oxygens are molecules that are plus or minus. They have, they're short an electron. And the way they destroy a pathogen is because they're electrically charged, being short of an electron, that they rip electrons from the pathogen or the damaged cell and destroy it. So that's called, there's lots of technical words that I don't want to get into all of them. But anyhow, so that's the underlying cause of inflammation. So what happens is, if there's any excess of these radicals left after they dispose of the damaged cell or the pathogen, then they're electrically charged. So they're going to steal an electron from something in a few nanoseconds. And generally that's an adjacent cell. In the process, damaging that cell. And then a message goes back out to the immune system. Hey, something's still here, sends another neutrophil. And so this collateral damage, this chain reaction, sets up what they call chronic inflammation. Mm-hmm. At the time, nobody really presented it this way. So what happens when you ground the body is the body becomes negatively charged. And what that means is it has an abundance of free electrons. And so you can't have inflammation in a grounded body because the body is flooded with free electrons. So when you have these excess reactive oxygen, there's even the red blood cells, when you're grounded, they have 300% increase in free electrons. So they can easily give up electrons and reduce these radicals. And then that's the way we live in when we were barefoot, when we lived in nature. We didn't have inflammation. The animals to give you an example, animals who live outdoors, if you go out and just sit in the park or watch the animals who live outdoors barefoot in the wild, the dogs, the antelope, the deer, the birds, everything, they have perfect health. I mean, they don't have lupus, MS, diabetes. They don't have any of these modern health disorders. But the animals who live indoors with their owners, who are insulated from the earth like their owners, they manifest the same health disorders as their owners. That's why we have such a big veterinary industry.
And you know what, Clint, that makes a lot of sense, because when I had a indoor cat before she passed away, she would always want to dart outside. They wanted to go out there, they wanted to eat some grass, and I really don't think that we realize as humans just the damage we're doing to our pets by not letting them go outside, because that's nature out there.
Yeah. Normally when there's like a dog or a cat or whatever, they get into fights and they tear each other up, or there's some issue, they'll go find a spot underneath of a porch, dig the ground up a little bit, and they'll just lay there for 2 or 3 days. There's no antiseptics, nothing. They just get grounded, and the grounding, they'll lay there 3 or 4 days, and then they'll come out and they're fine.
That makes a lot of sense. And you talked about Dr. Sinatra. Now we have a video here, and maybe you can explain what Dr. Sinatra is doing right here.
Okay, what Dr. Sinatra, this is what we did at the Abilities Conference. So what he's doing here is he's taking a patch that is connected to the ground, and then he's putting it on the bottom of the feet. And what we're trying to do is mimic standing barefoot on the earth. This is what would happen if you were living in nature. Now, this individual has significant issues with the eye. Loss of macular degeneration. So anyhow, we grounded him for 2 hours. And so that would be like him going outdoors and standing barefoot on the earth for two hours. And so what we have here is a before picture and an after picture. And what this shows is the increased circulation after and the improved blood flow. So when you reduce the inflammation, then the blood flow increases, and then it can reduce the inflammation, and it improves the eye bed, the health of the eye bed. But this is an example, because this is what's going on inside of your entire body. When you're grounded, your blood normalizes, your blood viscosity normalizes. It can get in and out of the capillaries, clean out the inflammation, the debris and so on, and properly oxygenate the tissue. And then you feel good. The pain goes away, health comes back.
And
it's really quite quick.
And I can speak from experience myself, Clint. I've been grounding for a little over a week. And I remember the first day I did it at the Abilities Expo, I felt it immediately. And now I sleep on a grounding mat. Audience can see that I have my connector right here that I do when I'm just sitting around, and I'm grounded too. And for someone like myself who's a quadriplegic, and other ones too, I know like Melanie, she has MS, and there's another gentleman who's a quadriplegic too, who's grounding, and I'm like them. I feel great. My spasms have went down, and inflammation, I've heard it called the silent killer. Have you ever heard that term too? And when it comes to inflammation, this is something that the medical professional as a whole are really not tackling as the cause of what's going on. They want to treat the symptom and not the cause. And it sounds like to me that ground therapy actually treats the cause and not just the symptoms.
Yeah, the issues, I have to go both ways on with the docs. I mean, sometimes, I mean, I have a son who is son-in-law who is the head of the radiology department at the Mayo Clinic. And I remember when he went to school, starting out, he was a young fellow and wanted to go out and be a healer, go out and help take care of people. And so then 12 years later, all of a sudden, a lot of death, a lot of life. And then you go to work for these companies, then all of a sudden it's about money or about making money and doing what they do in order for those institutions to maintain. But on the other hand, the doctors, here's the problem the doctors are faced with. They can't, it used to be eat an apple a day and keep the doctor away.
Yeah, I remember that.
Life used to be about prevention. Always, it's like the cattle in the pasture. I was taught prevention. Keep the pasture pristine, and the cattle will be healthy. If you let the cattle get sick, then you got to call the banker and the vet, give them the keys and tell them to figure it out because you're going to go broke.
That's true.
So, but anyhow, so here what we have is I worked with a lot of scientists, a lot of docs, but a lot of the docs say, we would like to do prevention, but there's no money in it. Mm-hmm. The other problem is we can tell people what to do, but they don't comply. They won't go home and do the things that they need to do because we're all creatures of habit. And then we live in a culture, where these big corporations kind of own the media and they monopolize and they train us to think this way, look this way, eat this way, and keep us in boxes. And, we're kind of like, well, I don't want to go there, but anyhow, it's a double-edged sword. Prevention is the way to go, but it takes effort.
Absolutely, sure does.
You have to fix your food yourself, otherwise, because you're not going to go out and buy good food at a fast food. I mean, you're going to get some nourishment, but you're not going to get that food that you need. If you want fresh vegetables, fresh food, you have to cook it. You can't buy things out of a can, because it's lost a lot of its life. And what you eat for is those enzymes and those electrons. You're eating energy because we are energy and so on. So it's but the thing I like about grounding is it's simple, mm-hmm. It has profound health effects, and it's free.
That's true. That is so true. And you brought up a very good point as far as when we ground ourselves, we can't go and pound a double cheeseburger, large fry, milkshake, and think everything is going to be fine. But we have to really change our lifestyle. If we it's like getting a Rolls Royce and putting like the cheapest gas in there. It's right. Something's going to give, right?
Yes. What grounding does is it puts out the fire of inflammation and helps you help normalize your metabolism, help normalize your being. You don't have that anxiety, that irritability, that stress from being in pain or being electrically charged with these radicals and this inflammation. And so what that does is it sets you up so that you can sleep better, you're going to have more energy. The pain's gone, so now you have to take it upon yourself to eat right, because if you don't eat right, it's going to create inflammation. The grounding will keep putting it out. But that's not the way to go. I mean, you need to balance your diet. I mean, it's like grounding itself. Grounding is a message from nature. It says, we are a part of the earth. We live, we eat, that's who we are. And we've disconnected from all of that. But to look at the indigenous cultures who are relatively healthy, they may not live as long as we do because of infectious disease, war, and all those kind of things. But the people who in a lot of the indigenous, they have none of the modern health disorders that we have.
That's true.
So it's the diet is, if you eat live food or healthier food, then your body doesn't need as much to get the energy it needs to do what you do in a day. A lot of times the diet is based on comfort food, emotional. I've gone through times of great loss when I put on 20 pounds because emotions, but there's all of these things that we have to balance out. So grounding is just, it's one of those simple ones that we can add to our routine that is going to help us achieve anything that we want to do. And mainly what I'm concerned about is taking care of these younger generations. We work a lot with the young moms, 35, who in that range, 35 to 45, they're busy taking care of their mom, who is on a half a dozen meds or whatever. They're busy taking care of their children, one of them who is on the spectrum somewhere today, seems, and then their girlfriends and their sisters. They're all, they end up being this caregiver. But by helping them get grounded one way or another, then they can take care of their mother, they can take care of their kids and their friends. And it gives them, women love, I mean, they are caregivers by nature. And if they're not busy helping people, they go a little.
You're right.
They get a little chesty.
Yeah, I'm married to one of them, so I totally understand. Well, we're going to take a quick break right here, and when we get back, we're going to conclude our conversation with Clint Ober, talking about earthing, talking about grounding. And I don't know about you folks, but this has been amazing so far. We can do this with a device, with a piece of technology, and you're able to find out more right after these messages.
In this world of technology, things are ever changing, rearranging. You need someone to help you out. I know someone who can. Come and take a journey with me as we go through the land of technology. You'll never be alone. You'll be with Paul Amadeus Lane in the tech zone.